You know that feeling when you are sitting perfectly still on the outside, but inside your head, it feels like an absolute hurricane is tearing through your living room. Or maybe there's a type of person who desperately wants to relax, who just wants to sit on the couch and watch a movie for once. But their chest is inexplicably tight, their foot is constantly tapping, and their mind is running 1,000 miles an hour about nothing and everything all at once. You probably think you are just an anxious mess. You think you just worry too much, or that you are overreacting to life. But what if I told you that it is not because you are weak, but because your brain is running a heavy hidden background program you didn't even install? Psychologists just figured out that what you have been calling bad anxiety your entire life might actually be an entirely different neurological wiring altogether. Honestly, if you have spent years feeling like your brain is a chaotic, uncontrollable mess, I need you to hear this right now. You're not broken. You're not weird. You're not antisocial, and you're absolutely not damaged. You are just completely exhausted. And you have every right to be. For years, you've probably been told by well-meaning friends to just calm down, to do some yoga, or to stop overthinking everything. But when your brain is fundamentally wired to process the world differently, taking a deep breath doesn't fix a damn thing. Look, living with this constant internal noise is draining. And it is completely unfair that you've had to navigate it without a proper map. Today we're exploring the actual psychology behind the incredibly confusing overlap between adult ADHD and anxiety. We are going to figure out exactly why your mind does what it does, and how you can finally start working with your brain instead of constantly fighting against it. First up, let's talk about the bizarre phenomenon of the blank mind, that terrifying moment when your memory just evaporates into thin air. You walk into a room, and poof, the thought is completely gone. You stand there looking around, feeling absolutely foolish, wondering if you are losing your grip on reality. You probably blame your anxiety, right? You tell yourself that you're just too stressed out to remember simple things. Well, here is where it gets interesting. Your forgetfulness isn't because you do not care, and it is not just random panic. It is a fundamental bandwidth issue. According to a groundbreaking 2025 study by Rausch and colleagues, anxiety symptoms uniquely predict poorer working memory performance in adults with ADHD. What does that actually mean for you? It means that when you have both ADHD and anxiety, your worry isn't just a vague feeling in your chest. It is actively generating intrusive thoughts and endless worry loops that consume the exact same cognitive resources your ADHD is already struggling to manage. Your working memory is under severe attack from two completely different sides. Think about it, like an old, struggling computer. Your ADHD means you naturally only have a tiny bit of RAM available to begin with. Then, your anxiety acts like a massive, resource-heavy virus running quietly in the background, constantly scanning for threats and refreshing 50 different browser tabs at once. Of course, your system crashes. When you forget where you put your keys, or you completely blank on a name mid-sentence, it is not because your memory is fundamentally broken. It is because your internal processor is completely maxed out. You are trying to hold on to a delicate thought, while a psychological siren is blaring loudly in your ear. You simply do not have the cognitive space to do both. Now, before you start thinking that you just need to try harder to focus, we need to talk about the physical side of this nightmare. Let's look at restlessness. Both ADHD and anxiety make you deeply restless, but they do it for completely different reasons. And honestly, this is exactly where so many doctors get it completely wrong. Renowned clinical psychologist Dr. Russell Barkley revolutionized how we see this in 2021 when he proposed that ADHD should actually be viewed as an executive function deficit disorder. Your executive function is the ultimate manager of your brain, and when it is underperforming, your brain desperately seeks external stimulation to wake it up. That is ADHD restlessness. It is a profound biological hunger for dopamine. Your foot is tapping, your hands are fidgeting, and you are constantly shifting in your chair because your brain is practically screaming at you to do something, anything, to stay awake and engaged. It is like you are driving a high-performance sports car, but you are stuck in agonizing bumper-to-bumper traffic. You are aggressively revving the engine just to feel alive. But anxiety? Anxiety restlessness feels completely different. Anxiety restlessness is hypervigilance. It is your nervous system preparing you to fight a bear that does not actually exist. Your shoulders are tight, your jaw is firmly clenched, and your stomach is constantly in knots. You are not looking for fun or stimulation. You are looking for an escape route. It is like having a faulty home security system that triggers a deafening alarm every single time a gentle breeze blows outside your window. Think about it. When you are lying in bed at night and you cannot sleep, are you wide awake because your brain suddenly wants to learn how to speak conversational French, start a podcast, and redesign your entire living room? That is your ADHD frantically looking for a late-night dopamine hit. Or are you awake because you are replaying a slightly awkward conversation you had 3 years ago, totally convinced that everyone secretly hates you? That is the anxiety alarm system going off. You have to learn to read your own body's dashboard to know which engine is actually revving. But here's where it gets really wild. Let's talk about what happens when you are around other people, because this overlap destroys social lives. You are sitting in a crowded restaurant. The lights are a little too bright. There are 4 different conversations happening around you. Music is playing from the ceiling, and suddenly you feel an overwhelming urge to flee. Your heart rate spikes. You feel trapped. Is it social anxiety, or is it ADHD sensory overload? In 2024, the American Psychological Association officially acknowledged that emotional dysregulation is a core, fundamental component of ADHD across all subtypes. Your brain struggles to filter out useless information. So, in that restaurant, your ADHD brain is trying to process the clinking of every fork, the lyrics of the background song, and the perfume of the waitress all at the exact same time. You become irritable, overwhelmed, and desperate to leave. You aren't necessarily afraid of the people. Your neurological switchboard is just sparking and smoking. Anxiety, on the other hand, is terrified of judgment. If it's social anxiety, you want to leave the restaurant because you are intensely worried that you are eating weirdly, that your friends think you are boring, or that you are going to say something stupid. Think about it. Are you shutting down because the environment is too loud? Or are you shutting down because the internal fear of rejection is too loud? Distinguishing between a sensory meltdown and an anxiety attack is crucial because wearing noise-canceling earbuds will fix one, but it won't do a damn thing for the other. Okay, yeah, I know what you are thinking. What if you do not have to choose? What if you have both? Well, that sounds incredibly unfair, but it is actually the harsh reality for a massive portion of adults. Current clinical estimates, like the comprehensive research by Katzman and colleagues in 2017, show that up to 50% of adults with ADHD will experience a clinically significant anxiety disorder in their lifetime. 50%. That is not a random coincidence. That is what I call a doom loop. Having one condition literally breeds the other. Imagine navigating your entire life with completely untreated executive function issues. You forget important dates, you miss critical deadlines at work, you impulsively say things that offend your loved ones, and you constantly let yourself down. Over time, those legitimate repeated daily failures create a deep, profound trauma. Your brain fundamentally learns that it cannot trust itself. So, what does it do to protect you? It develops severe anxiety as a rigid defense mechanism. Your anxiety becomes a brutal emotional time machine. It constantly drags you back to your past mistakes to punish you, ensuring you never forget them, and then it throws you violently into the future to panic about all the specific ways you are going to mess up tomorrow. You are terrified of dropping the ball again, so you start over-preparing, over-analyzing, and hyper-fixating on every single little detail. Your ADHD created the initial fire, but your anxiety is the one desperately throwing buckets of water on it, and occasionally throwing gasoline by accident. You are trapped in an exhausting cycle where your executive dysfunction causes a crisis. The crisis causes severe anxiety, and that severe anxiety drains your working memory, which makes your executive dysfunction even worse. But here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody really wants to talk about. The question isn't just whether you have ADHD or anxiety. The question is how much your anxiety is secretly keeping your entire life from falling completely apart. Okay, let me explain because this might sting a little bit. For many high-functioning adults, anxiety is actually acting as the desperate duct tape holding your broken executive function together. When your internal motivation, your dopamine system, is completely broken because of ADHD, you cannot just start a task simply because it is important. You just can't. So, you rely on the only other potent fuel source available, sheer, unadulterated panic. You procrastinate until the very last possible second, until the absolute fear of getting fired, or the fear of failing, or the intense fear of public humiliation becomes so incredibly massive that it gives you a massive surge of adrenaline. And that adrenaline finally forces your brain to focus. You are using anxiety as a prosthetic executive function. This is the deeply unhealthy version of coping. You look successful on the outside, you get your work done, you pay your bills, but on the inside, you are constantly burning alive. You are running your daily engine on highly volatile jet fuel meant only for emergencies. If you ever actually cured your anxiety, if you suddenly stopped caring about what people thought or stopped fearing failure, your ADHD would instantly become wildly obvious because you would lose your only coping mechanism. The healthy version? The healthy version is recognizing this toxic dynamic. It is realizing that you do not have to mentally traumatize yourself just to get your laundry done or to reply to an email. Look, I know exactly how tired you are. You have spent your entire life thinking you had to fight your own mind just to survive, right? You have been carrying this massive, invisible weight, constantly apologizing for being too much, or not enough, or just fundamentally different. But honestly, the fact that you are still here, still trying to understand yourself after years of running on the absolute fumes of sheer panic, is nothing short of incredible. You don't need to fix yourself, because you were never actually broken in the first place. You just need to finally put down the armor. Stop using fear to force yourself forward. Give that deeply exhausted brain of yours just a little bit of grace. If this hit home for you, please subscribe to the channel. We are building a safe space here at Psychology Station for minds that work a little differently, and I truly want you to be a part of it. I want to leave you today with something to think about. As the great humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." Take a deep breath. You are doing just fine. See you in the next one.